Omen Stories, The Sun Rises, with Dave Willits on Grocery Stores.
Roland Willits, Omen Stories. I'm standing behind the camera. Dave's up front. He's going to tell us about grocery stores. We're sitting here in by Naples.
Goodland.
Goodland?
Goodland, Florida.
Goodland, Florida. We're right on the bay, and we're at Stan's Idle Hour Restaurant. God.
Which means Stan's Idle Hour Restaurant in downtown Goodland, Florida. A fishing community, really nice place. You know, old-fashioned, been hit by hurricanes several times, but they keep coming back. It's very quaint, very nice. Okay, we talk about great grocery stores?
Tell me about Tony's.
Oh, you know, and back in Minneapolis when I was a kid, there was a grocery store was about a block away. A little family store was called Tony's.
Sanciola.
And Tony was a very large Italian man. Not necessarily large in girth, but just in size, big boned and stuff. And he had an apartment, what amounted to apartment or a house downstairs, and half downstairs of a two-story building, and half of it was the grocery store, and half of it was his apartment. And he had two kids, and a very nice wife. And upstairs, who he leased from or rented from, was his in-laws, his mother and father-in-law. And the father-in-law was the head of the local bakery. I mean, this is a big community now. This is Minneapolis, St. Paul. And he was the manager of Tasty Bakery. So he was a very strict businessman. And Tony had the bottom floor, and Ben Gilgosh had the upper floor, his father-in-law. But Tony he had just your regular small family grocery store, and he always watched out for the kids, waited for the kids. But he wasn't a slow learner, let's say, because he kept all the candy behind the counter where nobody could get at it except Tony, unless you really went all the way around the counter, past the cash register, and snuck in kind of behind him. So he always had candy for the kids, he always had pop for the kids, he always had a reasonable price, and he always had fresh flowers outside. He sold fresh flowers on the sidewalk of a busy street. And he used what's called glass wax, which is it's actually a glass cleaner which you put on the glass, and it kind of chalks up or clouds up, and as you wipe it off, it cleans the glass, and it comes off. It cleans the glass, and it comes off. But you could also put it on there, just leave it on there, and it would advertise. You could use it for advertising. And he'd always advertise all his flowers, and he had beautiful flowers, which years later you finally figure out that he was getting up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, driving downtown Minneapolis, the far side, the north side of town, to the farmer's market, and he was buying all these flowers. Gladiolas was his very best. He always had a lot of nice gladiolas when they were in season. And he'd buy roses once in a while and have them. He'd bring them back, and he would sell them on the sidewalk by the store. Tony was a tremendous businessman because he always had a smile. He was always seemed happy. But he also had competition, because up the street, I'm not I'm talking 50 yards. There was another large grocery store with an old-fashioned meat market, big meat market. Now, I was born in the late 40s, and as I grew up in those days, once you get about 5, 6 years old, you were kind of on your own, or your brothers or your sisters took you along with them. You'd walk up to Tony's, or you'd walk up the street to the other grocery store, which was called Everett's.
4 times a year.
And Everett's was the old-fashioned meat market. And they had a butcher there from the time I can remember. So we're talking probably 1954, 1955. They had a butcher there, his name was Jack, and he was kind of in charge. And last year, one of my friends went back to our part of the town, back to the old neighborhood, and who's standing behind the counter at the butcher store? Jack. 60 years later, Jack's still there, cutting meat, serving meat. Quite the story, quite the dedicated guy. But the nice thing about Everett's was they would take I have a ring of bologna, and they would cut this bologna into sections, and then they would split them in half. And they'd put a toothpick in each one, and they would have like a small paper cup or serving tray type cup with toothpicks and bologna in it. They would stick 3, 4 of those on top of the meat cases all along the store there. And they called them free samples. And us kids would run in the front door, run down, take 4 or 5, grab those toothpicks of the bologna, run out the back door. Have snacks, a little bit, 1/4 of a slice of bologna or half a slice of bologna. But grocery stores, you know, they played a very big part of the community, and between the two of them, Everett's and Tony, they played a big part of my youth, because they were always there, they were always predictable, you know, they were everything you wanted. I got one little story I want to tell about the day my mother sent myself and my older brother Richard to the store to pick up a can of Ready Whip. Now, we all know what Ready Whip is. Well, my oldest brother, Roland, he showed us one time how to turn the can of Ready Whip upside down and squirt directly into your mouth. Richard and I thought that was really great. So we bought the can of Ready Whip and we started on home. We're talking only, a city block. And we started home, and Richard said, well, hey, let's taste the Ready Whip, make sure it ain't bad. A little, and then I went, then we walked a little further. And by the time we got home, the can was just about empty. But my parents, you know, they weren't upset, extremely upset, my mother was. What did you do? I don't know. Must not have had much in it when we started. Turned around, sent us back up to the store to get more Ready Whip. But she was not a happy person. So that's kind of a little bit of what I remember about grocery stores in and around our home when I grew up. Geez, it's nice here in Florida. You know, like I say, this is a small community not that far from Naples, where we have our winter home, myself and my wife Christine. And we enjoy coming here every once in a while, 3, 4 times during the winter, just having a nice lunch here along the river or along the water. This is part of the 10,000 islands. And it definitely is just a fishing community. I mean, the people that live in this community, most of them are mullet fishermen or crab fishermen. Some of them are a grouper, go out into the ocean and fish for grouper. But just a beautiful community, very nice to visit. The weather's beautiful in Florida now.
Omen Stories, just one more day. Shopping.